everyone, this is Jennifer with DP Addiction Adventures, and you are looking at Diamond Art Club's Mandy Manzano's artwork that Diamond Art Club transformed into a diamond painting. This one is called Who You Say I Am, and I told many of my subscribers that I would work on this through the month of June, and I would do a therapeutic tool series about who you say I am with grief and loss. The reason that I purchased this was because of the meaning behind the painting, and I'm just going to read straight off of Mandy Manzano's website. Her artist note says that this is inspired by a song with the same title name by Hillsong Worship. We are in his hands, talking about God. He calls us his own. How vast are the amount of thoughts he has for us. Around his hands you see life. So life is blooming around the hands. Light and love. A small bird pays homage to the scripture where Jesus speaks about our Heavenly Father taking care of the birds, and how much more will he do for us. The sunrise means a new day, a new morning to wake up and remember who he says you are. Who am I that the highest king would welcome me? I was lost, but he brought me in. Oh, his love for me. And here's the little bird over here. You'll be able to see it better when we're done diamond painting. So when I was 14 years old, I was in a very dark place. Nobody really knew it. And 13 or 14. And I remember clearly asking my mother, and I was just like, Mom, why am I in the valley? And if you know anything about the Bible, don't worry, this is not going to get religious as far as the series. But if you know anything about scripture, there is a verse in Psalm 23 that says, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. And I asked my mom, I said, why am I stuck in this valley? Like everybody else gets to leave the valley. They stumble, they fail forward, they get sick, they get better, someone dies, they go through the grief and things happen. But my life, at even the age of 13 or 14, I felt like the carpet was always getting pulled out from under me. I never felt like I had stability. And I grew up in a family of 4 with a dog. I was in sports. I went to a good school. My family loved me, but just something inside me just wasn't right. And I was bullied, and there's just a couple other things that happened that I'm not going to really disclose on YouTube, but just led me into this valley. And so as I grew up, I continued to have that same thing. And through the course of this series, you'll hear some of the losses that I've had and that I've had to overcome. But I always went back to the scripture, I will never leave you nor forsake you. I am your rock. I am your strength. You are sheltered under my wings. How much more does God care for the lilies of the field and the birds? And the birds of the air. How much more will he care for you? And care does not mean everything's going to be perfect. And so what does that journey look like for your life to when the rug is pulled out from under you? So when I graduated from college with a psych degree, all right, so I'm going to turn this around and start diamond painting. I did a little bit of it last night just in preparation mentally for this tool. So I'm going to turn this around and I'm going to start diamond painting, and you guys are welcome to diamond paint along with me. Grab a diamond painting that means something to you. I know many of us are doing this exact one together. And let's get started as I talk. So when I graduated with my undergrad in psychology, I had gotten married. Took about 3 years before I started up in grad school. My degree is in professional counseling. And after a year of looking for, let's see, I gotta find which one I love this one. It's got color blocking, but I have to decide which color I want to go with. So, what is P? P is, let's see what we got here. You also will see back and forth. I'm in the middle of The Princess and the Frog as well when I'm not doing this specific series. So you'll see that one popping up too, so that I don't do this one without you. All right. So I spent a year, like I was in grad school 3 years after we got married, and then it was time for my practicum and internship. It was the only thing I had left. I was working full-time. I had a child at that point, and I could not find an internship. I needed somebody that was an LPC, which is a fully licensed professional counselor. And at the time, with the recession, many of the places around us did limited licensed, and that's what you are after you get your degree. In the state of Michigan, you become a limited licensed counselor, and then after taking an exam in 3,000 hours under supervision, you can become fully licensed. Well, at that point in my schooling, the limited licensed were not required to become licensed counselors. They could do everything a full licensed could do as long as they were under supervision. So many of the places I was trying to intern at had 1 or 2 LPCs, and then the rest of their staff, which would be the people available to be my supervisor, were LLPCs, limited licensed professional counselors. And so I was not able, I was looking for a year, and I had several internships lined up only to find out that my supervisor was going to be an LLPC, and then I'd have to start over again. So I ended up with this amazing woman. For a different time, I'll tell you the story of how we connected. But it was an hour away, and it was through hospice. And I'm like, ugh, I want to be a trauma therapist. I do not want to be a grief therapist. I've had enough grief in my life. I didn't really want to go into disorder, like not disorders, but like abnormal psych, so schizophrenia and DID, dissociative identity disorder, bipolar. I wanted to specialize in trauma. Little did I know that trauma and grief go together. And this woman is amazing, and she is still a blessed friend of mine. And she helped teach me that grief and loss can be more than just death. You can have a loss of a dream. You can have a loss of innocence. You can have a loss of a job. You can have a loss of health. Veterans, a loss of stability, a loss of your family members as far as estranged, divorced parents, alcoholics, substance abuse. You yourself may not be going through it, but it's a loss for you. Just life losses in general, and those are traumatic. And she just took me under her wing and showed me that my heart really was in grief. And so I did not work with hospice patients. I worked with the family members after someone passed. And so I would make phone calls to everybody who passed, within 24 to 48 hours on behalf of the hospice. And then I would ask how they were doing and if they wanted a grief counselor, and then I would go spend some time with them. And then many times I would then take the spouse or the caretaker of the person who passed on as a client for a couple weeks while they adjusted to the grief. Very rarely did I have somebody longer than a couple weeks. And then I also led some support groups for spousal loss, so people who had lost their spouses, as well as life losses, so taking the journey of some, not necessarily a death loss. And then I also did just a normal grief group for people who had lost loved ones, and I led those for a year. And I just fell in love with the idea that every little thing in our life we put into two categories, as a celebration or as a loss. Some of the losses on a scale of 0 to 10 do not even register, and other losses are beyond 10. And so it just really helped my perspective. And so that's how I started on this trauma therapist journey. And I had courses and certifications and different things like that, not certifications, sorry, specific classes I had taken to help. And now I'm in the middle of working on a certification for a therapy modality that helps for trauma. So yeah, my heart just said, you know what? We diamond paint for a reason. We diamond paint because maybe we have depression. Maybe we have anxiety. Maybe there's a loss we're dealing with. Maybe we have a very stressful job. Maybe, we don't have any family right now. There's a reason that we're trying to put these little colored pieces of plastic on glue. I mean, seriously, if you think about it from a distance, it's like, what in the world? But there's something therapeutic about it. And that's what I wanted us to walk through together is, looking at the losses in our life and how can we work through them and heal. Many people try to forget. And so I wanted to read a poem. I found a poem online. I wanted to read it to you guys. And it says, "On the Death of the Beloved" by John O'Donohue. And it says, "Though we need to weep your loss, you dwell in that safe space in our hearts, where no storm or night or pain can reach you. Your love was like the dawn brightening over our lives, awakening beneath the dark a further adventure of color. The sound of your voice found for us a new music that brightened everything. Whatever you unfolded in your gaze quickened in the joy of its being. You placed smiles like flowers on the altar of the heart. Your mind always sparkled with wonder at things. Though your days were brief, your spirit was live, awake, complete. We looked towards each other no longer, from the old distance of our names. You now dwell inside the rhythm of breath, as close as us as we are to ourselves. Though we cannot see you with outward eyes, we know our soul's gaze is upon your face, smiling back at us from within everything, to which we bring our best refinement. Let us not look for you only in memory, where we would grow lonely without you. You would want us to find you in presence beside us when beauty brightens, what kindness glows and music echoes eternal tones. When orchids brighten the earth, darkest winter is turned into spring. May this dark grief flower with hope in every heart that loves you. May you continue to inspire us, to enter each day with a gracious heart, to serve the call of courage and love until we see your beautiful face again, in that land where there is no more separation, where all tears will be wiped from our mind, and where we will never lose you again." So I found that online, and it just spoke to me that we either try to water our grief and feel like if we let go of the grief and the pain, we're letting go of the memory. And we also try to use the memory as a trophy. And I just kind of want you to think about that for a few minutes. And what do those words mean to you? It's okay to cry. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to feel the pain. That's all good. That's all healing. But what's not okay is to dwell on it and to let that be the source that tells you that you love that person. You know, if I'm in this much pain, I love that person so deeply. And if I lose that pain, I don't love that person as much. And that is not true, because your loved one is going to want you to enjoy life. Your loved one is going to want you to remember them with a smile, to be proud of the life they lived, to be proud that they gave their all with every last breath, whether that breath was for 2 minutes or that breath was for 95 years. And, you know, a loss that I'm dealing with right now, I'm just going to be very vulnerable, is some of the miscarriages my husband and I had. You know, we were pregnant 7 times. Well, I was actually pregnant 8 times, and we have 1 child. So 7 of those times, I miscarried. And 2 out of the 7 of those times, I had to go in and get a D&C. Which, for those of you who do not know, that's where your body is unable to help you manage the loss, and the doctors need to go in and help your body regroup and restore the loss of life that's in you. And I remember so clearly that the second time that I was pregnant was the time that we told our daughter, because we were far enough along and we had seen a heartbeat. And I remember when I knew I was miscarrying, I couldn't pass. And so they gave me some medication that actually threw my body into labor. And so for 2 days, I still remember the fetal position I was in and just weeping and sobbing and hurting like I've never hurt before. So I get that heart-wrenching pain. I get wanting to disappear. But I also knew that I had this beautiful daughter God had blessed me with, and I had this loving husband that was hurting just as bad. I knew that there had to be a purpose. This was a life. This was somebody that I would cherish and meet eventually someday. And whatever your belief system is, you know, tie into that. I'm just sharing my belief system from my heart. And when that didn't work and I had to go in and get a D&C, you know, the insurance papers labeled it as an abortion. And so that just took it to another level of sadness to see something like that on paper. And how do you get through that? How do you overcome that? And that's where I want to go through the myths of grief, because many times people, oh, I've heard horrific things. I mean, I've heard somebody go, well, at least you have a child. I've heard somebody say, you know, with time it'll get better. You know what? Time is not what makes it better. It's time is the vehicle that you're healing through. So the term is off-putting that with time heals all wounds. No, it just takes time for wounds to heal. Do you see the difference? And so there's 6 major myths out there that I wanted to talk about, and that's going to be what we talk about today. And then as I get feedback from you guys, I have a couple other things on the schedule to talk about, but that's going to be kind of where we narrow in, are the 6 myths of grief. And we learn these very early in life. Okay, so number 1 is don't feel bad. So, you know, if we skin our knee, you know, oh, it just hurts for a minute. Or, you know, if we lost 20 bucks, you know, out of our wallet, well, it was just $20. You know, like we start to do this whole like minimizing that core this isn't right feeling. Now, there's a difference in my head, you know, this like perspective difference of, yeah, that sucks, but then how do we move on and get like push through it? That's for another meeting, but we're just talking about grief in general now. So, yeah, of course, if I lost 20 bucks out of my wallet, which has happened before, you know, yeah, shoot, that hurts, you know, for a minute. But I'm going to accept that it hurts, and then I'm going to work through how to learn from it and how to prevent it from happening again, or surround myself with friends or something to help me work through it. It doesn't just get put on a shelf and forgotten, right? You know, you don't forget about your skinned knee that hurts every time you put on a pair of jeans or take a shower. No, you put on a Band-Aid and you put on, you know, ointment or Neosporin or hydrogen peroxide, and you make sure it doesn't get infected and you keep your eye on it. And that's the same thing with grief, is let it exist. Let yourself feel it, but don't let the feeling absorb you and take over. You know, let's process those feelings. Number 2 is replace the loss. You know, all right, so your dog passes away and somebody says, you know, we'll get a new dog. Or your bike gets stolen, get a new bike. This perception that if you replace the loss, the pain will go away. Now, in the real world, many times we do replace what was taken, but it's not replacing, it's just getting something new to help us move on. It'll never replace the old. Yeah, and there's a difference to that. There's a difference. Another one is grieve alone. You know, laugh and the whole world laughs with you, cry and you cry alone. You know, in childhood, if you're going to cry, go to your room. You know, these are just things you wouldn't want to burden others with your feelings. But the profound truth is that when you get good news, you want to share it with people in your life. Equally, the same is true when you get bad news. Our first instinct is to call someone and tell them. Communicating the truth about how you feel is one of the healthiest things you can do for yourself. So I want to encourage you guys to be better listeners, to not judge or criticize the feeling of your family and friends and their reactions. You know, that's them. That's how they grieve, and that's how we grieve. You know, find that support group, that group of people who accepts you no matter what. Because it's the healthiest thing you can do. You know, I just had a friend who we texted, and then, you know, I was there to watch YouTube videos with her and just helped her through the beginning of her healing process. And it hurts at first, but then there's such this release, you know, to be able to cry that day when I knew what was happening. I mean, it killed me to sob. But in the end, when I felt depleted, I felt alone, I felt like nothing was going to go forward, after I cried, there was just this sense of release. And it didn't make things better as far as like, oh yeah, now I'm pregnant and now we're going to have kids, you know, and jump up and down for joy. No, I still had to go to the hospital. I still had to go through everything. But gosh darn it, like there was something about that cry that helped me get through it. And it wasn't a pity me cry. Because that's not real and authentic. If you do a woe is me, that's never going to help that feeling go away because it's not authentic. And the truth is what really sets you free and helps you grieve. You know, accepting how you're feeling, accepting where you're at, and then being willing to work through it at that level. So number 4, grief just takes time. And I already touched point on this. You know, time heals all wounds. And yeah, so I'm not going to get into that much right now, but it happens within time. It doesn't happen because of time. 5th one is be strong for other people. I'm the strong one. I'm the one that has to hold the family together. Da 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 da. And that's me to a T, to a letter. And that is a myth. You do not have to be strong. You do not have to be the one that holds it all together. The world will still turn without you. There will still be people there to support your family when you fall apart. And I am preaching to the choir because I just went through something like this where I was falling apart. And somebody just was like, it's okay. Excuse me. When my husband, I was taking him into the ER for the 3rd time, my daughter started crying because she thought he was going to have to go back into the hospital, and I was getting everything arranged for her, and I called my friend, and she just was like, girl, like she just didn't even ask me how I was. She just said, hey, I hear in your voice that you need something. What can I do? I'm here. We're going to do it together. And I was like, wow. And I just broke down crying. And I had been so strong all day with clients and with people trying to get things arranged. And I just like cried. And she felt like, oh my gosh, I made you cry. I was like, no, it's in a good way. Like I felt free and safe to release. And that's what you want to be for somebody else. And that's what you want to be for yourself, is you don't have to be strong. Life hurts, and it's okay to hurt. It's okay to be in that truth that you've lost somebody, or you've lost something, or you just were diagnosed with MS, or you were just diagnosed with fibromyalgia, or you know, your dad now has cancer, or your parents are splitting up, or, you know, you don't get to go into the school that you worked so hard, or you didn't make soccer tryouts, or, you know, something's got to give. You do not have to be strong. It's okay. It's okay to hurt, but don't let that hurt overwhelm you. Surround yourself with people who can support you and love you. And if you don't have anybody, that's a lie. Because I'm here. You can always message me. People care if you're true and authentic. And number 6, keep busy. This is one that I am ashamed that I do. If we just keep busy, then we'll get through it. And in therapy, we talk about distracting. Excuse me. which distracting helps calm you down when you're in a panic. Helps bring your brain from the left or from the right side to the left side so you can logically think through things. However, it's also a way to hide. And if you distract yourself too long, you're going to prolong the grieving process because you're never going to face the truth. And the truth is going to just hit you in the face. So distraction is good to a certain extent to get yourself calmed down, but the reality is that you're going to need to face your grief. You're going to need to face your loss. And it's okay. It's okay. So those are the 6 myths. And the next time we go through this, I'm going to talk about the 5 stages of grief and that they're actually untrue. So I'm just going to give you that little teaser. And I'm going to give you the story behind the 5 stages of grief and what the truth actually is behind them. And then we're going to talk through some scenarios of what grief feels like. How can you put grief into like a solid way of explaining it so that then you can work on processing it. So it's not this ambiguous, nebulous thing that just floats out there, but it's something that's real and solid and that you can sink your teeth into so that you can work through and process it. So I hope you enjoyed this little time of just understanding what grief is, understanding that there are myths, understanding that your gut reaction to grief is probably true, and it's okay, and that we're here for you. And as I work on this painting during our series and our sessions, I'm going to be thinking about the fact that I am not alone, that I am in this together with my family, with my God, and with my friends. And this painting is going to remind me of who I am inside, who I was created to be, and that every day that I'm given is a gift from God. And the people that I have lost or the things that I've lost in my life do not define who I am. They are parts of my life, but they are not me. And when I can understand that, then I can process my grief just a little bit easier. So until next time, I hope that this helped encourage you, give you some direction as we move forward. And I just can't wait to spend more time with you. And I love you all. If you need a giggle, check out my Confessions of a Goody Two-Shoe, because we can't be serious all the time. If you want to see this in action with its unboxing and more of the story behind it, feel free to check out the unboxing, which I will put right here. So until next time, I love you all. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and be blessed. Take care.